Welcome to Mystery of the Soul, where curiosity meets spirituality. Are you curious about metaphysics, the mystical, and the supernatural? Would you like to learn how they are all part of contemporary spirituality? Join me, Leo McCarthy, a spiritual mentor, psychic medium, Reiki master, EFT tapping practitioner, and a shaman.
And I'm Julia LeBlanc, an awakening soul, a doctor of physical therapy, author, yoga teacher, and Reiki master. We hope that our unique perspectives open the door to an amazing journey of discovery.
Please join us and our guests in conversations about spiritual awakenings, our life's purposes, and mysteries of the soul.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mystery of the Soul. I'm Julia, and I'm joined with Leo.
Hi.
And we have the pleasure tonight of having Steven La Russa here on Mystery of the Soul. Before we start, Steven and I turn it over to you. Guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, please, if you're enjoying the show. All right. And now I have the pleasure of turning it over to you, Steven, if you'd like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Well, thank you, Julia. I appreciate it. My name is Steve La Russa. I am I like to call myself a conscious life coach. I went through I guess I would say 2 to 3 year spiritual awakening combined with dark night of the soul. And, my story kind of starts like a lot of people. My spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul, was basically brought on by a number of life-changing incidences that happened, crises that happened in my life. Losing my job due to downsizing, going through some marital problems with my wife, going through some difficulties with my son, going through some growing pains he was going through, and also losing my life savings in real estate deals. And it's funny because all of this stuff kind of hit me at the same time. And that's basically what sparked my shift in consciousness, what am I doing here? There's got to be more to this constant pursuit and chase to get more and more and more, and getting it and then never feeling fulfilled and never feeling whole and never getting that happiness that so many people look to outside of themselves. So I went through a spiritual awakening, which, like I said, all this conjure up a spiritual awakening, shift in consciousness, the dark night of the soul, which I describe a dark night of the soul as that battle that we have between the ego self and the false identity of who we think we are, and getting in contact with our true authentic selves, our true nature of why we're here and what we're meant to do, life path or purpose, whatever. And I spent a lot of time fighting it. Like a lot of people, this is not something normally people are educated about. It's talked about in the mainstream. So, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was going through a midlife crisis. And I did everything I could to, quote unquote, try to be normal and hold on to who I thought I was. And I fought it tooth and nail. And anybody who's been through that experience, you realize when you're fighting what your soul and what your higher self is trying to relay to you, you're just making that fight tougher. And that's what I did for myself. So after I went through all that, that's what I wanted to. I was really hit with the urge to help people that were going through awakenings or dark night of the soul, or maybe just people that didn't feel fulfilled, didn't know their purpose, didn't feel happy with their life, living on false identity, and maybe a lot of us don't even realize that we are. So that's when I went to study quantum physics, Dolores Cannon, Michael Newton, Brian Weiss, spiritual leaders. I got my certificate to be a quote unquote master spiritual coach. And I wanted to put myself out there because when I was out there going through it, I didn't have anyone to talk to. A lot of times family and friends can't relate. For me, and I'll just speak from my experience, I went back to my Christian backgrounds, back to the church. They couldn't really relate to what I was going through and weren't educated on it. So I said, you know what? There's a need for this. People need to hear it's okay to break out of those constructs and the dogma and the programming that's not you, that doesn't really resonate with who you are. So needless to say, after all of that, I ended up having a near-death experience, a shared near-death experience in which, to make a long story short, my wife and I both heard the voice of God during this near-death experience, shared NDE. My wife and I spoke telepathically during this NDE. And my wife actually spoke in different languages during this event. So needless to say, that, along with a lot of synchronicities and signs and from the universe, and especially after that NDE, I felt like a floodgate of things were opened up to me through my, from my spirit guides, my angels, my spirit realm or whatnot. And, that has brought me, long story short, to why I'm here today and why I do what I do.
So, Steve, I want to take you back to that struggle that you talk about with the ego and your higher self. Was there like a moment, or did you get to a point where you were kind of ready to surrender, and kind of what made the difference with you being able to do that?
Well, I really, yeah, I got ready to surrender when I just got tired of fighting. For me, I was just, okay, I'm trying to make myself do things and act a certain way and be around people that no longer resonate. And at the time, I don't know why they resonate. I don't know why this doesn't feel right. I don't know why this doesn't feel like me. And it was a conflict because that's what I'd done my whole life. So I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. I don't know what it is. I'd always been a very sensitive person, and that was all enhanced when I went through this experience. I would be walking to the store, someone would pass me, I hold the door open for them and get this feeling from them, pick up this sadness or anger or whatever the emotion would be, and I would just start breaking down and crying. And, in a world where men, especially men, are taught you got to be tough and you got to be hard and can't show any emotion and it's dog eat dog, it was hard for me to give into that. So finally, it was just a point where I realized, it came to me, that wasn't who you were. This is who you are, and you need to embrace it. So this transaction, basically, this shift goes smoother.
Steve, I feel like a lot of people kind of romanticize awakening. And I know that for those of us who have been through a dark night of the soul, it doesn't feel very, very much like that.
Mm-hmm.
What did that period like actually look and feel like on a day-to-day level for you?
On a day-to-day level, I spent a lot of days trying to, like I said, at first, trying to go back to who I was. I spent a lot of days researching, am I going crazy? Am I having a midlife crisis? Why am I feeling like this? And then I went through a lot of nights of literally crying, just crying, going through fits of anger to sadness to, compassion for other people to literally not wanting to be here anymore because I didn't know what was going on and who I was. And the few people that I tried to talk to about it didn't give me anything that resonated with me that in the terms of answers or solutions to what I was going through. So for me, it was, really a lot of nights in the fetal position and, struggling to give up who I was because, a lot of people have this fear. If I give this up, what do I do? Where do I go? I can't give this up. It's all I know. It's become a part of who you are. And it's not an easy thing to let go of, especially when you don't know where you're going.
So
Go ahead, Julia.
yeah. So your near-death experience in October of 2024. If you feel comfortable, could you walk us through what happened and how it transformed your understanding of life, death, and consciousness?
Well, Julie, it was really weird for me because most, not all the time, but most NDEs that I've read about and studied, they usually spark a spiritual awakening, right? Usually an NDE will give some big revelation as to the afterlife or your true purpose, or, there is no hell or whatnot, or you'll see loved ones, all that stuff. But for me, it was interesting because my spiritual awakening came after my NDE came after my spiritual awakening in Dark Night of the Soul. And it's funny. And I actually know the reason for this. And to make a long story short, once I done all my study, I got certificates, I done this and that, read all these books and whatnot. I was told, I had a divine download. Said, okay, Steve, it's time to put yourself out there. It's time to create your website. It's time to do videos. It's time to do interviews. It's time to get your story out. And that's where I froze. I started to revert. I started to get those feelings of low vibrational feelings and thoughts. Am I good enough? It's too much of a burden. Who's going to listen to me? What are people going to think? All these things that a lot of times keep us handcuffed from coming and stepping into our true purpose in life. And I started to revert. And during this NDE, it was revealed to me that, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You've gone through this for a reason. We all have a purpose. You're meant to tell your story, and whoever it resonates with, that's fine. It won't be for everybody. Everybody won't get it. Everybody won't understand it. Everybody may not believe it, and that's fine. But the people that need you will find you. But for me, it was getting over that little speed bump of doubt that I had that was keeping me handcuffed.
Steve, so we all kind of struggle with things on a daily basis, and we kind of struggle around things that have happened to us in our life. What do you still struggle with?
I struggle with, to be honest, for me, it's realizing that you can't help everybody, and that you can't show everyone what to do and how to do it. And no matter what my experiences are, all I could do is lend my experience, my suggestion, what I did during that situation, how maybe help you to change your perspective, to go through it easier. But I had to realize that I can't help everybody. And for me, what was a shock to my system is once I went through all this and I started just going to family and friends and talking, and it felt so alive, and oh my gosh, I figured it out, and this is what it's about, and here it is, and you have this new shift in consciousness. What shocked me is that everybody is not going to get it. Everybody's not going to relate. It's not going to resonate with everybody. And I expected this warm, open-handed, this warm hug of a welcome from people, and they looked at me like I was crazy because and I get it, because people are still stuck in that old way in programming of thinking. So for me, it's releasing that urge to try to help everybody and realize it's not meant to resonate with everybody. Everybody's not on that level, and that's okay.
Is there any, to go back to your dark night of the soul, because that affects us so much, and we take away a lot of lessons from that help us work on ourselves internally, but also help us hold space for other people that we work with. Mm. What are some lessons, or what's like a main lesson that you took from that period of time?
The main lesson that I took from that is that you have to, in order to step into your path and purpose, your calling, or what the universe has for you, or however you'd like to define that, you have to be able to release. You have to be able to release. And it taught me during that dark night of the soul, I had to release the biggest thing, a part of me, which was what I thought my identity was. I had to let it go. I think that's probably the hardest thing in this lifetime that we need to do. That's hard to be able to shed. And I realized, okay, in order to receive from the universe, my path, my purpose, to be in line with what I'm here for and to complete my mission, you have to release what's not for you. You know what I mean? You have to release the hold it has. You got to release your attention. You got to release the excuses for holding on to it. Well, I've done it for so long. Well, that's just how they are, and it's okay. And you have to release all those things that keeps you stuck in this false identity, and realize that what's meant for you can't come, and you can't even, you're not even in the right mind frame to receive it if you're so focused on holding on to what is no longer you. And we do it for so many reasons.
Steve, after your awakening in dark night, how did your relationships and career and sense of purpose evolve?
Well, as far as my career, I could no longer, and you guys could probably relate to this, I could no longer do the line of work that I used to do. I come from a background of manufacturing. I've worked in manufacturing work for 30 years. I worked for GM and Toyota for 13 years. and I was, I've been a supervisor. I've worked in quality control. During and after the process of my transformation, I realized that I couldn't stomach that type of work. I couldn't go in there and listen to people talk about people and listen to the complaining. And in manufacturing, I don't know if either one of you worked in manufacturing, but it's a pretty low vibration there. There's no sunlight, there's no fresh air, it's loud, there's a smell of chemicals everywhere, and it's very low vibrational. And I couldn't work in that atmosphere anymore. I couldn't function. I felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown trying to work in that. I couldn't do it. The friends and family that I used to have, a lot of times I tell my clients, everybody's not going to resonate with your new authenticity. Everybody's not going to respect your new boundaries. Some people will only be able to see you for how you were 10 years ago. Oh, that good old Steve, this is what he used to do. Some people aren't evolved enough to understand, accept, or recognize the change in you. And I tell people that's okay. That's a sign that that relationship has run its course. That season is over. That soul contract is over. Let it go. But a lot of us, like me, when the universe is trying to close a door, we have a tendency to put our foot in the door and try to keep that door open.
I think a lot of people.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I think a lot of people can fear awakening because it just can bring a lot of like emotional upheaval. So what advice would you give to somebody who's currently in the middle of their own like spiritual awakening or feeling like they're in that crisis of not knowing and not really feeling like who they are?
Right. I would tell people to be patient, trust the process, make sure you release, because the longer you hold on to this, the more drawn out the process is going to be, and the more miserable you're going to make yourself, the more suffering you're going to go through by trying to hold on to something that no longer aligns. And to realize, and one of the biggest reasons people don't want to let go is because of fear of the unknown, like I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Realize that there's something better on the other side of this transformation that's waiting for you, that you're getting ready to step in. And that's your authenticity, your true self, what really resonates with you. So don't be afraid to let go of the old and trust the process and give into it. Because the more you give into it and trust it, and don't worry about the unknown, it's going to come. You're going to step into your true self. But this part of you has to literally die first. It's a process.
So I'm going to ask this. I know, Leo, you have a question, but how do you think our listeners could begin to recognize when they're just operating from that conditioned identity versus their authentic soul self?
Well, one reason is anything that you have to force yourself to do, anything that feels like a burden, that doesn't feel right, that feels heavy, that, saying yes when you want to say no. And a lot of times we ignore that intuition, those divine downloads, because quote unquote, it doesn't make sense. And I tell people, if you want to be able to enhance your connection to the spiritual realm and to get in tune with it and to get aligned with it, you have to leave out rational thinking. Oh, I always go right. Why am I feeling like I need to go left? That doesn't make sense. I always go right, but something's telling me to go left. You know what? I'm going to go right. Everybody's going right. I've always gone right. I'm going to do it. And when you apply that logic to spiritual downloads, the spirit realm doesn't operate in worldly logic. So the two can't mix. So it's trusting that intuition, trusting that feeling, trusting that notion. And really, I tell people, challenge everything that you think, believe, or perceive. Because just because you think, believe, or perceive it a certain way doesn't make it truth. And you'll find out, like I did, once you start challenging some of those things and you really challenge them and question yourself and dig deep, you'll realize a lot of things that didn't resonate with you in the first place. And you'll be able to weed those out and separate them.
Well, I think a lot of those blocks end up hindering our spiritual growth in so many ways. Yeah, it does. There's so many things that we do that block and hinder our ability to get in line and in tune. There's so many things. All these low vibrational thoughts of judgment, expectations, being unforgiving, not, seeing someone else's path and how they handle a situation. And because it's not how you would handle it or what you believe, quote unquote, is right or wrong,
judging that person. Now I tell my clients, when you see someone doing something that maybe irritates you, or it's not the way you would do it, or you think it's not right, stop yourself and really think, okay, that's how they're handling it. This is their path and purpose. It may not be something I agree with or how I would handle it, but let's not get into the labeling and judgment. They're wrong, they're stupid, they're this, they're that, because a lot of people are still operating under unforgiveness and expectations and judgment and all these low vibrational things. But then a lot of people run off and want to do spiritual practices like sound baths and meditations and yoga and all this kind of stuff, which is great. I do all of it. But it's that old saying, like, when they change the oil in a car, they drain the old oil first before they put the new oil in. A lot of people are trying to put new oil on top of the old oil. And you have to be able to really challenge yourself, everything you think, believe, and perceive, and how you think, believe, and perceive about others in situations that are going on in your life.
So, Steve, in order to make that identity shift, it takes a lot of work. And there's a lot of release that needs to happen. There's a lot of blocks and limiting beliefs that hold us back. Mm-hmm. Can you give us some of your own like personal practices and modalities that you found helpful, like in the past and even now, that you still work through?
Yes. Well, my thing is that anytime I'm perceiving a person, a situation, an event, or whatnot, I really have to tell myself, don't take this personal. Don't take this personal. Don't let this person's ideal of who I am, what they think about you, what they say, don't let that define you. It doesn't matter. We tend to put so much in other people's opinions and approval and validation and worry and dread people's judgment. And to realize that none of that stuff defines you. It's not who you are. It doesn't matter. And people are going to think and do whatever they want. But I think so many people spend so much time worried about what other people are doing, what other people are thinking, what other people are going to think about them. It's shedding that notion and that concern about being looked at. And here's another thing, being looked at weird or different or crazy because you're not going along with the masses. It's okay to go down your own road and go down your own journey. And you have to be okay with that and realize whoever doesn't respect that, whoever doesn't understand that, that's actually a good thing, because once you make that shift, there are going to be people that fall out of your life, and it's not a time to mourn it. It's not a time to try to fix it. And sometimes you may not even understand it, but you have to be okay with that and realize, I have to relook at everything I think, perceive, and believe. And I tell people, you have to be unlimited. If you're trying to connect to an unlimited realm, like the spirit realm, unlimited source, like God, the universe, the light, whatever you choose, spirit guide, angels, when you're limited and in a box and you're trying to connect to an unlimited source, it doesn't align. And that's why we get a lot of that static, because we have so many things that people don't think is a big deal, or we do subconsciously that we don't address. And a lot of people wonder why I'm not in alignment. I'm not connecting. I'm not getting my signs and messages and synchronicities. But there's a lot of different reasons why that's happening.
So, Steve, as a physical therapist who's also a Reiki master and yoga instructor, I can see a lot how stored trauma can block energetic flow. How do you view the connection between emotional wounds and spiritual disconnection?
Well, it's realizing that a lot of I'll give you an example. A lot of the quote unquote wounds, we perceive them a certain way. And I'll give you an example. For me, which helped me. I went about 20 to 25 years where I didn't talk to my mother. And I mean, no contact. I mean, not a postcard, a phone card, a text, or anything. And for me, when you look at, especially what people, quote unquote, have done to you, I tell people it's really important to try to detach from taking that so personal, and realize that whatever this person did to you or however they hurt you, to realize that, we are all on different spiritual levels, spiritual levels of evolution. And, when someone does that to you, that's not really a reflection of you. That's a reflection of a hurt that they have going on inside them. And to detach that because they treated me bad, or I missed out this opportunity, or such and such happened that we label as bad and wrong and mistakes and failures and all that stuff. We also have to change the way we label these things. Don't attach them to your identity. These are experiences and situations. They don't make you who you are unless you do. And if you could attach these situations from your identity, one, and two, not label them. Perception is everything. If you label something as bad, horrible, and a failure, that's going to be followed up with sadness, anger, depression, and regrets. So it's important to realize that this is all an experience. We're here to learn, grow, evolve, and actually transcend the duality of this world. But you can't transcend it, you can't grow from it, and you can't even learn from it if you don't put it in the proper perspective in the first place.
So, Steve, with the state of the world the way things are right now, it's very chaotic. There's a lot of friction, there's a lot of divide. When you work with clients, what advice do you have for them to kind of move one day at a time through what we're going through right now?
Well, it's funny how you talk. You talk about. You mentioned the separation of this world and all the trauma and tragedy going on and divide and whatnot. And it's important to recognize and to understand. Like I said, is how do you categorize this? You really need to change how you perceive it. If you categorize everything that's going on as, they're events, they're situations, I may not like them. They may not resonate with me. I wish things were different, but it's really important to let go of what you can't control. You know what I mean? And to release that, and don't focus on the state of the world, because the only way you change the world is by changing yourself first. And if you do that and take away the seriousness of the world, take away your identification with it, you're not that party, you're not that country, you're not that religion, you're not that race, that's not who you are. And if you can get here and play the game and go through the motions, learn, grow, and transcend the duality of this world, and it's that old Buddhist teaching of detachment, of learning to detach from it, and realizing that how you categorize these things, how you perceive them, is going to lead to how you think and how you feel about them. You know what I mean? When I go through something, or when any of us go through something that's unpleasant or not the outcome we wanted or didn't happen like we planned, you can look at that as a failure, as a mistake, as a terrible thing, or you can look at that as a learning experience. What can I do different next time? How can I grow from it? How can I handle it next time? If it didn't happen, maybe there's a reason that it didn't happen that I don't know about. Maybe the universe is protecting me for something, for my higher or greater good. Maybe this, even though everything on the surface looks great, it doesn't align. And trust that it doesn't align. And say, okay, universe, thank you for removing that. Not, oh, I messed up and I didn't get the job and I should have did this. No, maybe you didn't get the job because that's not the job for you. There's something about the job that the universe is protecting you from. Because like I tell people, the universe also, it closes doors also. Everybody loves to talk about open doors and manifestation, and that's great. But you can't get to those. The universe can't open those doors, like I said earlier, until you close the doors that aren't meant for you. But people don't want to do that. We love to hold on, and we get attached, or we have this fear of what's going to happen. You got to realize that these things, if it closes and it stops and the relationship is over or whatnot, or whatever the event or situation may be, don't dread it. Take that as a sign that wasn't for you. And that kind of helps you deal with it a little better,
Hang tight, guys. We'll be right back.
Steve, when it comes to synchronicities and signs from the universe, how would you discern something that was genuine guidance or just coincidence?
Well, for me,
Yeah.
how I separate the two is, for me, it's just a feeling. I just know. For me personally, I feel it in my gut that, okay, when I see, I'll just give an example. When I see a set of random numbers, or hear a song on the radio, or wait a minute, am I looking too hard for something? Am I trying to create something, or is this a genuine sign? So the biggest thing is don't look for the sign. Don't be overly expecting, because you can make something out of anything if you look hard enough. It's about letting it come generically, staying in the present so you can receive it, but also how does it make you feel at the moment that it happens, or what were you thinking about at that moment? That could give you some indication also.
So we've talked a lot about perception. What advice would you give people if either they're not in a place to change their perception or they're not ready? How do you meet them where they're at, and what advice would you give them?
Well, for me, it's kind of that thing of just, I've had clients like that. When I do a consultation, I want to make sure that this is a good fit for you and me, that I resonate. I want to see where you're at. I want to see where your thoughts, perceptions, and beliefs are. I want to see how attached you are to them. Are you willing to not give up that belief, but are you willing to at least open yourself up to a different way of thinking? And to be honest with you, some people are not, and they're not willing to give up how they perceive and what they think about, or their beliefs on certain things. And I've had that happen to me. No, this is what I believe on that. Have you considered that? No, I don't want to consider anything. This is how it is. Okay, fine. And with those people, for me, you can't force people to be ready for something that they're not ready for yet, or they're not willing to embrace. Some people don't want to move on. Some people are happy where they're at, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people are content. I was content where I was at for 50 years, or at least I thought I was. So I get it. So it's about explaining it, putting your suggestions, your guidance, your experience out there, and whatever resonates. But it's about flow, not about force.
So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think for some people it feels very intimidating to think of you have to have a complete life overhaul. So do you think that spiritual awakening can coexist with just grounded daily life?
Yes, it can coexist as long as you have your two P's and your priorities and perspectives aligned. It can coexist. For me, it was tough, and it's still tough. Sometimes trying to balance the 3D reality, simulation, matrix, whatever you want to call it, and staying in line and attuned spiritually. And I tell people, you don't have to go through the severity of what I went through. Spiritual awakening, dark night of the soul, NDE. I went through some harsh stuff, and a lot of stuff I've even talked about yet. It's not about that. It's your willingness and that desire to change. And usually that becomes when we're fed up, when we can't take anymore, when we really have run out of things and we're tired of chasing happiness and fulfillment. And that's a different point for everybody. And once you do that, a big change, or big way you can know you change, because people sometimes, I've been asked, how do you know if you've been through a spiritual awakening? How do you know if you've shifted? Well, one sign is that things that you used to do, people that used to resonate with you, activities you won't resonate anymore. I've had new things come to me that I never knew what were inside me. I'd never listened to classical music before. I bought a piano and started self-training myself on the piano. And you'll find that you'll come into these things if you're willing, if you're willing to release, if you're willing to let go, if you're willing to unlearn some things that you learned. And some people aren't ready to do that, and that's okay. Everybody has a time for that.
So,
and I'd say too,
yeah, go ahead, Julia.
That our belief systems, I think, can shape our energetic frequencies and our life trajectories. So I don't know. I feel like, as somebody who's been through some things,
right?
It was I had to go through a bunch of those things before it finally smacked me in the side of the head and was like, hey, get it together. So I know people that their spiritual awakening or their shift kind of came in a slightly different manner. And it wasn't that kind of abrupt. I call it like that tough love, get
Right.
yourself in order. But I think that, the belief systems can have a huge impact
Oh yeah.
on where
Yeah.
we go and where we're headed and what happens.
Yeah. But people don't realize how limiting and constrictive and how much those belief systems keep you in a box. And that's one of the main things that I try to convey to people. And what I've found is that a lot of people they feel threatened by having their beliefs challenged. And I tell people, to challenge your beliefs doesn't mean you have to give them up. It doesn't mean you have to denounce them. It just means opening up yourself to new ideals, new beliefs, new ways of thinking, and give it a chance to resonate with your soul. Give it a chance to resonate. If it doesn't resonate, that's fine. Being open and unlimited and challenging your beliefs doesn't mean giving them up. And I tell people, you don't have to give them up, but put them on the shelf for a minute. Look at it like this, with an open mind. Let's talk about it. Let me tell you some experiences. We'll go over something and see if it resonates. If it resonates with you, go on your feeling. Leave your logic out of it. Because if you're trying to connect and you're trying to see what resonates with your soul and what you're in alignment with, your logic is not your friend. Logic has a place, but in connecting spiritually, logic is usually a hindrance and a block.
So, Steve, a lot of people on their healing journey, we talked about like being ready to work on things. And, so sometimes people are ready to work on do their inner work. Sometimes they're not ready. Sometimes they have anxiety about working on it because there might be things that are triggering to them. Can you talk a little bit about spiritual bypassing?
Right. I mean, and a lot of people are spiritual bypassing with their spiritual practices, with their, I got to be happy and I've got to force myself to be positive, and I'm going to go to this crystal shop and I'm going to do this sound bath and do all these things that put, a temporary glue on the broken chair. And it's important that I tell people that, that's when people come to me and say, well, I don't understand. I've been doing all these things, like I just mentioned, and I don't feel fulfilled. I don't get the messages. I'm not getting the downloads. I'm not getting the answers. And it's not something that a lot of us want to do. But in order to grow and evolve and to transcend, you have to face it. You can't deal with what you don't own, what we sweep under the rug. Because a lot of times we go through a bad situation or something. What do we want to do? I don't want to talk about it. I want to forget it. I want to move on. I don't want to deal with it. And they sweep the situation and all their feelings, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions about it under the rug. And you can't learn from it. You can't grow. You can't evolve. And this is all these things are. These things are not problems. They're not failures. They're not bad. They're situations. They're events in our lives that we need to learn from, handle, transcend, and deal with it. And I will put it like this, is that it's going through that death, and going through that death to get to the other side of who you are and get in tune with that. And I didn't talk to like I said, I didn't talk to my mother for 20 or 25 years. I didn't talk to my father for 10 years. There were a lot of things I didn't want to deal with. But what I tell people is, when you do, there's a relief and a weight and a burden, especially when you look at things from other people's side. Because when something happens to us, we look at our hate, our pain, and our turmoil, and then we develop anger and depression and sadness over it. My mother, a real quick story, she abandoned me when I was 5. She was drinking during my sister's pregnancy. My sister has fetal alcohol syndrome because of my mother. She left us when I was 5 and she was 1. I had a lot of animosity. I had a lot of feeling not worthy, feeling what's wrong with me? Why didn't she love me stuff? And it wasn't until I had an aunt tell me, Steve, do you realize that when she went through all that, she was dealing with her demons. She was dealing with her doubt, with her confusion. She didn't know who she was. And you got to realize, you weren't the only one hurt. It killed her to leave. How do you think it felt her to kill her? It killed her to leave her kids, to know that her daughter has fetal alcohol syndrome, and basically she disabled her for life. And I really thought about it. And when you look at things from other people's point of view, and not just from your perspective of pain and hurt, and I was done wrong, and realize those people that hurt you are hurting also. And it's to look at things through that different lens to help to try to get you through it.
Along your journey and even now, do you have any regrets?
It's funny. The one regret, and I don't even want to say regret, is something that I still think about, but I know that everything happens for a reason, happens in our own time, and we have an eternity to quote unquote get it. But just that, I didn't see some of the signs that I clearly see now when it comes to people and situations and investments and things like that. And it's okay, because I needed to go through that. You know what I mean? Because if everything would have worked out, obviously I would have still been stuck in that false identity. So I know it happened for a reason. And it's about, I feel I have a lot of people come to me. Oh gosh, I should have got it a long time ago. I regret it. I should have handled it like this. Everything happens in its time, and you get it in your own, on your path and journey. So don't beat yourself up with having regrets, and realize this is what we chose. This is why we're here, and it's okay.
Something that I just want to share, because I feel like this has resonated for me so many times over the years, is just a phrase that rejection is God's protection. And
Right.
it's one of those things that you think like, oh, like it's something that I really wanted to have happen, or a place
Yeah.
I really wanted to go, or a thing I really wanted to do, or no, it should have gone that way, or, like, well, that bad thing happened to me. And almost every time I actually think about that rejection as God's protection, it is
Right.
fascinating to me that, like, wow, things really could have been very different. There's a reason why that happened. And I find it in a lot of difficult points that it's actually very comforting.
Yes. Well, you know what? I think for a lot of people, it's getting over that. When something doesn't work out like that, it's getting over that need to try to figure out why. We all want to know why. And what I've learned from my experiences with the universe is that you may not always know why right away. You may not know why for another 5 months or a couple years, or, sometimes we may never know why. But when something happens, trying to overanalyze it. Why didn't this happen? What did I do wrong? Oh, I messed up, and staying stuck on it too long. Why are me and this person not friends anymore? And things like that. We have to be okay with the unknown. We have to be okay with releasing them and realizing we may not always have the answer to why a situation or event or relationship happened a certain way in life. And that need to try to figure it out. And sometimes you just have to release it. You play it back in your mind. You can learn from it. You can grow from it. But you need to transcend it, not stay stuck in it. And if it's revealed to you later on, there's a lot of things I went through at the time I didn't know, and I was banging my head up against the wall trying to figure out, and I stayed stuck in that space. Years later, a lot of the things that I went through during my spiritual awakening, Dark Night of the Soul, were revealed in time. So it's just trusting that process of the universe and being okay with the unknown, and realizing that seasons in. Life is impermanent. Everything in life is impermanent. It's constant change.
So for someone who's feeling really like lost or disconnected from source or God or the universe, what would you say are kind of some of the like practical steps that they could take to help them reconnect?
Right. I first of all, I would tell someone, first of all, you need to stop the perspective that you're disconnected. We are all connected to source. We're all connected to our higher self. That connection can never be broken. So for me, it's not a matter of the connection. The connection is always there. It's a matter of getting realigned and reattuned with that connection. It's about getting back in alignment with the connection. So it's about, I would start off first. First thing I would tell people to start off with is really question yourself. Question some of your beliefs, religious beliefs, social beliefs, question your relationships, question your job, question your life right now and how it is on all those different levels, and go through it, and start to begin to okay, this person, this job, this situation, this way of thinking, the religion I'm in. Really sit with it and analyze whether this feels like a burden, it feels heavy, it feels forced, does it feel light, is there clarity, or do you feel good about it? Get in tune with your feelings about everything in your life, and go down the list and make a list of things that resonate and things that don't. And with the things that don't resonate, be okay with beginning to detach from them, to be able, because those things that don't resonate, that you don't get those clear, light, joyful feelings from, are not aligned with you. So it's one, to make a long story short, that's where I would start.
If somebody's really struggling to detach from something, what advice would you give them?
Well, it's always to realize anytime people are struggling to detach from something, it's for a few reasons. It could be because it's become a part of their identity. They don't want to let it go because, there's a fear of what am I going to do after this? What are people going to think? I got to keep doing this certain thing. If I let it go or change, people are going to think I'm crazy and something's wrong with me. So it's putting yourself first. I'm not going to worry about how I'm perceived or how I'm looked at or how I'm judged, because I've spent so many years living this life trying to live up to those standards of other people, approval, validation, fear of judgment, all these things that we mentioned. This is not serving me. This is not serving me. So it took me, like I said, 50 years to realize I don't have to put on an act for anybody, because when you do that, when you put on that mask and that false identity, you're not only doing a disservice to yourself, you're doing a disservice to that relationship or that situation or whatever you're going through, because you're not being authentic. You're not being true. This person's not getting the real you. You're not being the real you. You're doing yourself a disservice. And when you come into that, and when you start coming into your authentic self in your connection with the divine, and you start setting boundaries and you start detaching, you're going to see things in your life line up. It may be hard at first because some things will drop off, some things will fall to the wayside, but realize whatever that thing is that you've attached to, that's not a part of who you are. It's not a part of why you're here. That's an experience. That's a situation to learn, grow, and transcend from. And to be able to change your feelings and thoughts about a situation or person, you got to change, like I said, you got to change your perspective first.
Steve, when you kind of went through your experiences and you kind of had probably shift your identity, as you were getting to kind of know yourself and your true self, your authentic self, what did you find that you identified with? What makes up like your identity now?
Well, what makes up my identity now is just me. For me, it's just being a light. It's being a light for people that are going through what I've went through, are going through it, have gone through it, people that are feeling fulfilled, people that are feeling, questioning, what's this all about? What's my purpose? Where do I fit in? For me, what lights me up in my purpose is just helping people, giving people permission to say it's okay to break out of that box, out of that construct, out of that dogma, out of that thought process, you know what I mean? And that it's not really you. And for me, I just get joy in helping people. Anytime someone contacts me and I give an encouraging word or something uplifting, or be an example to someone, or have people see something a different way, that's what excites me.
Has there been a person in your life, could be family, could be friends, could be just someone you connected with and resonated with, but you had a lot of, you looked at them and respected them and thought about how they, presented themselves, and, who would it have been or still is, like could have been like maybe like a mentor to you, or who you looked up to, or who you respected, that's helped kind of shape you?
Huh. That's a good question. I would say for me it was my uncle who always taught me, even when I didn't know what he was talking about. It sank in and it resonates. When I was younger, taught me to be authentic and stand up for myself and separate from the crowd. If you know, you don't have to go along with what everybody thinks or believes, or be your own man, be your own person. And that's always stuck with me, even before I came into this transition. And that teaching really helped me to deal with my transition, especially once I really truly gave up who I thought I was. So for me, my uncle has always been a role model of the proper way to carry yourself as a man, a proper embodiment of what the divine masculine is. That's another problem. So many men have this warped ideal of what, quote unquote, being masculine or a man is. And he taught me even back then, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be compassionate. It doesn't make you a sissy or a little girl, and all these labels that we put on each other. And that's something that always stuck with me, and I was able to draw strength from when I was going through this process or this shift.
He sounds like he was an important guy to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, sir.
Well, we covered a lot tonight. What is one thing you want to leave the audience with, Steve?
Well, I want to leave the audience with one: believe it or not, and it may not feel like it, but you're enough. You may not feel like it, but you're worthy. You may not feel like it, but your experience matters. We all here, no one will ever in the history of the universe have the same exact life and experience that you're going through now. It all matters. It all makes up the universe of who we are. It's all part of the collective consciousness. It all goes back to source to continue us growing and learning and evolving in the evolution of everything that is. And don't ever think that I'm just a this, or that's insignificant, or that doesn't matter. If you're still here on this earth and you're still breathing, you still have some kind of purpose. And it doesn't have to be some big purpose that's going to make you famous or save the world. It could be something as simple. There could be someone for you to talk to uplift. You may need to hold the door open for somebody. You may have a conversation with somebody that inspires them to do something that they were procrastinating on. There's so many reasons for us to be here, and every experience matters. So I invite people to just embrace that, remain unlimited, challenge your beliefs and perspectives, your thoughts and how you feel, because unless you challenge them, you don't know what it truly resonates. You don't know what is truly aligned with your authenticity, and you can't grow, learn, and evolve spiritually without doing that.
Good message. Do you have anything else, Julia?
Not that I can think of right now.
All right. Well, thank you again, Steve, for joining us tonight. This was a pleasure. And we love your enthusiasm. You have a lot of energy.
Thank you. Yes. I'm part Italian. It's hard for me to hide my enthusiasm and get my hands to stop moving.
And if people want to reach you and work with you, can you just tell them how they can do that?
Yes, sir. Best way to reach me would be at my website, which is spiritualalignmentsl.com. So spiritual alignment and then my initials, sl.com. There you could find more about my story, what I do, what it entails, and email and also social media links also.
Awesome. And then we'll put all that in the show notes for people.
Great.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share us. And until next time, be well. Bye.
Thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Bye.
And to our listeners, if something stirred in your body, your breath, or your awareness during this conversation, trust that. Healing doesn't always arrive as answers. Sometimes it arrives as resonance.
And if you want more information on Mystery of the Soul, go to our website at www.mysteryofthesoul.com. And if you're interested in more about Leo's services, go to his website at www.leojmccarthy.com, and you can always book a free discovery session with him.
And if you're interested in the services that I'm able to provide, please visit arisewithjulia.com for any information about Dr. Julia LeBlanc. This has been Mystery of the Soul. Until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, and keep listening.